Hello, everybody. Very good evening for all of you joining from India, and very good morning for all of you joining from elsewhere. Thank you so much for being here yet again on a Saturday evening. I'm your host, Rohan, joining in from India, and this program is brought to you by Yomo Design School. Yomo Design School is a recently launched initiative and a program where we offer world-class design experience and design education for anybody who's interested to learn design from the beginning, from a very beginner to even an expert who's willing to upskill. So we are offering master classes, and we're also offering a 6-month full-fledged design course where you'll be properly certified and you will be industry ready. So if you're looking to learn more, do check out yomodesign.school to learn more and understand what our program is all about. And we've been doing this Saturday night sessions for a while now. We have a couple of speakers come and give talks, or we're going to have people who talk about, who advise you on how to go about your design career. So we have an amazing panel today, yet again, some of whom are very well known in the design industry. So without any further ado, let me go on by introducing them. So first we have Shayak Sen, who's the head of design at Vedantu, and he's quite experienced coming in from IDC, IIT Bombay, and he's been a part of Yomo Design for a while now. So welcome, Shayak. And next we
Thanks,
have
Rohan.
Sanchi. Hey, Shayak. Hi, good to see you.
Yeah.
Next we have Sanchi Bharadwaj, who's the co-founder of Cross Design. She's a postgraduate in strategic design from NID. She's also spoken quite a bit at UX India, so I'm sure the audience is very familiar with you, Sanchi. Welcome on board.
Hello, guys. Thank you, Rohan.
Thanks, Sanchi, for being here. And finally, we have Carlo Roy, who is a very qualified and trained, experienced design professional with nearly 20 years of experience, and he's worked globally at many places. So welcome, Carlo, to Yomo Design School. I think you're the first time over here, so a warm welcome to you. And finally, we have our I should say my co-host by now, Bapu. Welcome. Bapu is the founder and chairman for Yomo Design. So Bapu is joining in from New York. So a very good morning to you, Bapu.
Very good morning. Hi, Sanchi, we can see you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can see you actually. Your camera is not on.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Rohan.
So today's session is, mostly to give guidance to folks who are trying to get into the UX industry or the UI industry or the design industry in general. Of course, this is primarily because we have our Yomo Design School where we are offering world-class design education for a lot of folks. And we do keep getting asked a lot of questions on some very basic aspects of the design industry and how to go about navigating it. So you folks are very experienced and have done quite a bit of hiring in your careers. So we're going to be generally discussing a couple of things and maybe taking a couple of questions from the stream as well. So people who are watching us, so do post your questions on YouTube Live. We will pick it up towards the end of the session. So firstly, to start with, a lot of people who are joining the design industry have no idea about what a portfolio is or how to go about building one. And some of them who have not probably even started their design journey need to know something about what a portfolio is. So I'm going to go about asking each and one of you some basic advice which you can give to these folks who are looking to build their UX portfolio or their design portfolio. So Shayak, firstly, let's start with you. What advice would you give to such folks?
Okay. Am I audible?
Yep.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So, this depends a lot about the context, like which company are you hiring for and which role you are looking for, the portfolio and all. If I were to address to a slightly younger, profiles, which is like, let's say, a fresher to, let's say, a couple of years in the industry, I think the first thing that we definitely look in a portfolio is a craft angle to it, right? Which is how much of the, because that's at least at the starting of a career, that's something that you want really somebody to bring on the table. Once you have evaluated the craft, then of course the second comes the process, right? If you are aware and you are quite have a strong understanding of the design process. That is followed by the third is that how deep you can break down a problem and your understanding of problem breakdown. When we look at portfolio, we often see a very standard processes, right? And like you have the steps that understanding the problem, the process, and which is, I think, is good for to be in the portfolio. But obviously, we definitely look to go deeper into that and try to understand that are the younger or the mid-level designers are able to understand the nuances of it, because sometimes the portfolios have very broad problem statement, which are the hero problem state or the ideal state problem statement. But when we actually go into a product solutioning, we do definitely look deeper into that. If somebody was actually capturing a data and looking at very lateral problems and very nuanced problems than just having an ideal flow. So primarily these three for me, at least to start with, the craft, process, and the third is the really a deeper understanding of problem breakdown.
I think that's a great way to look at it, Shayak. So, Sanchi, just to build on what Shayak said, he said, he would look for a deeper understanding of the person's skill or their ability to design, right? So, how do you go about understanding that in a beginner's portfolio?
So usually what happens is like today the job market is such like for any vacancy there is like a huge number of people applying. So when a person is sort of scanning a portfolio, so any recruiter or any person who's actually looking at the portfolio will spend very few seconds to just glance at it and then decide if they want to go deeper and sort of see what understand how people are sort of approaching problems. So I think those first you have to sort of design your portfolio in the way that if somebody takes like like a brief overlook, are they like more intrigued into learning a little bit more about you? And having said that, it is extremely important, like visual hygiene, visual sensibility and aesthetics, I think is a basic hygiene. If a person is not able to communicate their idea, tell their story visually through their portfolio, whether it's like it's UX or UI design, irrespective, because I think at the end of the day, your job is to actually also present your work to the relevant stakeholders. So I think that is very important, the storytelling, how you are actually highlighting what's important. And also to build on what Shayak said, I think what I'm most tired of seeing in portfolios is that 8-step process. Like I know if a person is coming from a certain design school, there will be these 5 pages. And if they're coming from a certain other design school, there will be these 5 steps. And then that is sort of like there's no individuality to it, and suddenly you lose interest, I feel. So at a deeper level, what I would look at in a portfolio is actually the process, how you have grilled a problem, what approaches you didn't take versus why did you decide to take a certain approach. But even before you reach that point where somebody would analyze you on that, I think there is like this 15-20 seconds where you have to capture the interest. And like when if you have 60 portfolios, you can't really imagine somebody to go through each and every detail. So that is what I think is like the key thing while you're approaching your portfolio. Can you communicate the best bits about it to me in like those 15-20 seconds or 1 minute or something like that? And then comes the whole detailing where I would want to see, so that there could be portfolios which look very well designed, but there is no substance. Versus there could be portfolios where there's a lot of substance, but a person is not able to communicate their ideas in a way that I understand what the process was, what really happened here. So I think that is where the balance needs to be sort of tried to be achieved.
So one point, Sanchi, I think there's a one very interesting point that for example, 10 candidates actually apply from same design school, and they have very similar format, and then the projects also will have common projects. And how do you decide in that case? Like you see all of them look similar, right? So how do you decide in that situation?
So, in all honesty, sometimes these portfolios would just come with one single case study trying to be built into three. Like they would try to sort of say that this is one. They would try to make it look like these are three different projects. But you take a glance and you know, okay, this is just the UX part, and this is the iOS part, and this is the Android part. I just feel it would be better to just authentically say that I'm a newcomer, and this is one project that I've spent a lot of time, and this is my entire process. As is, like, anytime I find it, like, if the portfolio seems delusional, that is where, like, if it seems authentic, then you could still sort of decide whether you want to look further into it. But if it seems deceptive, then you sort of overlook it.
Okay.
It's a great insight into hiring, Sanchi. So, Carlo, I would, ask you to probably jump in here and give your thoughts. I do have a question to ask, but maybe once you're done, I'll give you that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I mean, it's been quite a few time that I spent in this industry, and for me, when I'm looking at any portfolio, uh, I feel that a portfolio is a teaser, right? A teaser to know a person, right? About a person. The first thing that comes into my mind that it should engage me immediately, and even if I spend there 2 minutes or 3 minutes, it can give me an interest to growing interest to look farther down the line, right? So if it can be 5 years of experience, 2 years experience, or any number of years of experience, but if I can make the whole story punch it into one simple 5 minutes story, that would be the right portfolio for me, because a portfolio itself will not give you the job, right? Portfolio will enable or open the door for further conversation. So in the beginning, if I see that the portfolio is overwhelming, definitely there is some issue, right? As Sanchi said and Shahid said, portfolio can can definitely will have some format, but each and every individual is different, right? And it should connect to that context of that individual and that project. And that doesn't mean that everybody is working in the same project or same working environment. They are different persons, so they should have a different context to connect, right? To engage. So for me, it's very important to make your story telling in a very, very honest manner. And even if it is a one project, definitely there's no issue about it. But how you're going to present it, that is what it's more important. Yeah.
Great. So I think that's what you said is absolutely true. That going through, I think all of you have said that going through a lot of portfolios, you often don't have enough time to deep dive, and only if something interests you or catches your eye, you go deeper into it. So we're going to follow that format right now, where we'll try and review a couple of portfolios where people have submitted it or shared it with us, and we'll just keep it very open, and we can go about going through it very quickly. And if you find something interesting, you can jump in and share your thoughts. So for people who shared your portfolios, thank you so much for sharing. We are randomly picking portfolios. We are not curating it. So if your portfolio is not featured today, just keep sharing it with us, and at some point we will pick it up. So don't mind if it's not shared today, but I'm going to share my screen right now. And yeah, I hope my screen is visible. All right. So we have our first portfolio by Arpit Bhatri, who's a UX UI designer from Tata Consultancy Services in India. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick his first project on Behance, and we will take a quick look at it, and feel free to jump in and share your thoughts as we go. So this is your first image you see, and it's called War Square, which is a food market. It has bars, food vendors, restaurants, street food trucks. It is home to outdoor stage and events. It has 60 vendors, and you directly jump into branding, your logo and icons. You have a color palette, and you have a couple of icons being showcased over here. So, what are your guys' thoughts until here? Like, you heard a little bit about the app, and now you're jumping into the branding aspect. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah. So I would like to just, I'm not going to say what is wrong or right here because we probably do not know the context that on build this portfolio on, right? So without knowing that context, so first question coming into my mind, what is the challenge that that the designer has taken up to solve? First thing is I need to know the challenge that actually surfaced in front of him or her, and then probably I'll go and see that how they get into the understanding the challenge, and then probably it will go progress towards that ideation, solutions, and testing and other stuff, right? So I at a glance I can see I missed the challenge. I probably do not want to understand what is this project all about. I want to understand what is the challenge about. And then the next thing would be what would be the role of this particular designer was into this project, right? And what kind of action that he has taken or the process he has taken, and so on and so forth. And it can progress towards that. And that's a storyline for me, I would like to say. And for
I
me, the
think
very last point would be I'm looking for is a very nice looking screens. That would be my last thing to look for, right?
so. I think this is very highly UI driven and branding driven. So, what do you guys think of the UI which we finally see over here?
Rohan, if I can add to this, okay. So first of all,
Sure.
as soon as I see this, first, I mean, and then I will come from my current context because again, depending upon where you are and what role you are looking for, it differs very much. So first of all, it is on Behance, okay. And if I'm looking at, multiple portfolio, I am looking at people who are digital natives. And because if he's a fresh guy, I would want him to either have coded this part or had built it on Notion or something as someone else, right? So as soon as I see this on Behance, my first impression is that this person is a visual person who has recently upgraded to UI UX. Okay.
Okay.
So my first, that's right. Second is that if you go up, okay, the problem statement is just broad. So you are making one app, and this is the most easy thing to do, right? Create an app. Okay, start with a basic problem. I can say that create a taxi app, create this app. So hence I already know by looking at that, ki somebody is designing the whole app, there will be lack of nuance because you can look at 5 more apps and you can build something which is similar to that because there's no problem statement. You are just copying it to. Third is that person is talking about branding. Now, branding is an exercise in itself. So this is, I would have assumed, even if for the scope of this product, somebody would have said that this is a UI, system or UI guidelines that I'm going to use because you don't go about branding in such a short notice and just setting out few things. And so by this time, I would be only looking at the UI and the craft of it. And that's what I said, right? If I am hiring somebody for craft, I will then just look at that, okay, fine, this guy's typography is fine, that scale of typography, because you are talking about mobile. Does he understand the scaling, the density, the, that is right or not? And I would say that, fine, fair enough, that looks decently well covered. I would also try to go slightly a bit, but by this time, if I'm not hiring a UI designer, I would have lost my interest. So that's what I would say.
Correct.
Right? And I would probably have not even seen the problems covered because these are again, like this comes with the overall app thing, right? Like customers would like to
Correct.
explore the vendor profile, which is like basic 101, and we are not going deeper. So that's what, yeah.
So I think we've spent enough time on Arpit's first project. So let's get to the next project. Portfolio by Nitin Kumar, who's a UX designer from Chandigarh. So this Nitin claims he's just a UX designer. So let's take a look at his first portfolio and first project. So it says smart pole system. And then I go down, I get an overview, which is an IoT-based solution for maintenance of smart poles from command center. This system will help admins to monitor overall health of smartphones, transfer call to other team, view workflow of the smart poles, and maintain best status. So to me, I didn't get what this project actually is. So if you guys got something, maybe we can talk about it. Then you jump into your problem statement. City dark hours and contribution.
Like in this, who is the user of this product? I'm just trying to understand.
Let me scroll a bit down. So you have your 60 process, but I think, and then you have your introduction to smart cities, and you have smart poles. I think he's talking about a street lamp, and it's an IoT-based solution where you can maybe from a admin point of view turn it on and off whenever required. So he talks about charging, SOS, RFID display, Wi-Fi, CCTV sensors, LED. So until now, this was the most interesting screen for me. So what do you guys think about this part?
Okay, I would like to just say something, but before that, guys, I would like to apologize for the power issues that I'm facing right now.
That's okay,
And
Sanchi. Not a problem.
yeah,
Please go on.
yeah. Having said that, I feel what's happening here is like there's a lot of text, and I think there is like you have to sort of the whole idea of building a portfolio is to create a visual hierarchy in the information that you're trying to tell people. And what like you have a headline which is, instead of saying introduction, you say it should be like a more active headline where you get an idea what this whole paragraph could be talking about. And then you could bold a few things here and there, or just like add one bit of statement that was giving more context. So you should always design a page at 3 levels. What if a person is only reading headlines? What if a person wants to get a little bit more context? And then the third stage is if they want to dig deeper and know more. So right now, this is only designed for a state where somebody's actually invested and going to read the whole thing, which nearly never happens.
True.
You will probably be just asked to explain it once if you get into a call. But for that call to happen, you have to design information in a way that, again, it's about piquing my interest, or it should, first thing is if I'm able to comprehend at all what is that you have done. And here I think all of us are a little lost in these multiple sketches and these long written texts.
Yeah. I think it's
so how important do you guys think is writing skills here? I mean, you just spoke about that, right, Sanchi?
No, actually,
how important is it to be a good writer?
So the idea here is not about how nicely you're able to write a sentence, but as a designer, the whole visual hierarchy is what sort of, even in an app, that is what you do. The idea is what are the action buttons that should be on the top? What is the information that I can sort of push behind the navigation bar in 3 clicks? So this is also the same approach. Ultimately, I am the user who's going to consume this portfolio. And how are you helping me navigate through it? So it's not about how well written it is. It's about how you choose to display the information that the portfolio contains.
So I think the point here is you take this as a portfolio itself is a design project. So what I see here is like, it's a lot of thought process here, and then whatever that the person has done, everything is being documented. So it is not a documentation exercise, it's a portfolio, right? So you have to understand how much I have to present it so that people actually understand quickly, and if they're really interested, they ask you more questions. Here, you actually done a kind of ton of work, and then you try to dump it onto the person, and it's so difficult to digest what you're trying to say. So think like a film, right? In a life story, you are telling us in an hour and a half or 2 hour movie. So each and every screen or every scene or dialogue is very important. So you do a lot of editing and a lot of screenplay, and then finally you're trying to bring the product, which is actually people like it. And one thing I want to tell you guys, sir, you've done a great job, but the way in theaters, right, how people talk when you try to say something serious, people laugh at. So things may not work. So that you have to keep showing it to people and iterate it, take it in a positive manner. And the way we are discussing here, it's going to happen the similar way in the companies when they're a panel of or your peers sitting there and then they talk about your portfolio or resume. So take it in a positive manner. Whoever is trying to give them some good ideas and they're really valid. I think it's not just only for that person, whoever is been showing the portfolio. It's for everyone
True.
who wants to really understand and learn.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to
True.
this two things. I was just thinking, so two parts to this. Of course, first of all, I would like to clarify. I mean, to all these guys that first, great job. But this is a critique session, so and we have even more. Once you're inside the company, there is even more stronger critiques that happen, and even more deeper. We are even now touching the surface, so that should be pretty okay, and it only gives an opportunity to improve. So about this project particularly, there are two other points. Like right off the bat, you can just say that probably I would be the UI or the UX of the or the visual competency of this person is probably of not the same level, probably the last guy, right? So hence I will be, if I have to even go ahead on this portfolio, I will be looking at the problem solving part of it. But even in that part, I see a lot of documentation, like you said, Bap. And I could see there was some interesting, there was stats and all, but I would be really interested to see if I have to scroll down that whether that person has used a stat for design solutioning or not. And if there is no correlation to whatever documentation that he or she has done to solutioning part of it and how it kind of impacted the solutioning, then that's only for that person's self-education. Now, so hence I will try to see that if whatever documentation has happened here, that has impacted the design solutioning in any way or not. So that correlation is very important for me, right?
Yes, I think we are slowing down a bit. So let's pick up the pace a little bit. I think it's great feedback. And like I said, it's a critique session. So we're not saying something is wrong. We're just giving you feedback for you to work upon. So let's go to the next portfolio. It's by Tejashwi Shiv. And I'm going to click on the first. And this is what you get. You say torchbearers of trivia about quizzing society club. And then directly, so it's intends to inculcate a passion for quizzing, gaining knowledge, and sharing it among a broad spectrum of people, ranging from college students to corporate, spread across the nation. So then you have colors and typography. Then you have your home page. So I'm guessing this is a website, and this is your navigation over here. Thoughts, guys. So we're directly at the home page now. So maybe
Rohan,
correct.
right off the bat, if I can say that if this is a desktop website, such a large bunch of text in justified text is not a good design practice. So as you can
Correct.
So the
Yeah, so just to add over here what Shrak said, there are a lot of design standard or design etiquettes to be maintained over here. Example, like the background image on top of the text, how it is appearing, how you're using the colors. I mean, whether you're using colors or you're using pictures or text, everything should have some purpose towards the design. So it is not that I need to make it colorful. That's why I'm using all those colors. So that sometimes annoy the end user, right? So we have to be very cautious about this, and designers need to, especially designers need to be very careful about that. When to stop, it is very important, right? Since we designers are creative, they start pouring the design and creativity into that subject, but it is not always acceptable. And I mean, first look probably it will excite people, but after a couple of seconds, if it is not usable, people will not even look at it again, right? So we have to think about that. Is our design usable tomorrow? So that's what I feel is missing here. I'm getting a lot of things, but I'm not getting the
Correct.
context. Yeah.
So I guess the
Yeah,
feedback for this
Actually,
is pretty straightforward.
yeah, I think visual communication
Yes, ma'am.
101
looking
is definitely there's a gap. Yeah.
So,
Right.
looking at this, I also have another thing to add that even if you are an entry level person, basic thing that any company would expect from you is, little bit of understanding of how maybe material design works, or what are the
Right.
iOS guidelines. Like sometimes you just see buttons placed anywhere, or there's like sometimes not like over here. It's okay to break the boundaries. It's okay to use a text vertically, but overall coherence, if you see, like there's a lot of misplaced stuff, and sometimes that gives a sense of maybe this person doesn't really understand how, like what are the best practices, or what are like the clean ways of doing certain things.
Got it.
I think
I think that's
that's a
some great advice.
yeah.
Yes,
The
Babu.
point I think what I see here is as you know a person who is actually reviewing any portfolio, you can clearly say that this person didn't have a traditional design background. As Sanchi and I think Kalal were also pointing it out that right. So the number of elements that's been used, the fonts, for example, the homepage fonts, there are some 6, 7 different fonts being used. So one we should understand is when we are showing it to our friends, family, everybody says, "Wow, this is great," but don't carry it away with that. You this is a kind of sessions actually helpful to understand from the people who have got a lot of experience and they had it, good design understanding and education, so it actually helps. So for example, look at those different types of fonts. You go a little down, actually you see multiple
Three fonts
yeah,
being used. Yeah.
go down. Yeah, I don't understand actually why do you need, and some you should also understand how these fonts are web friendly or not creating images, right? So more than that, typography and basic design composition, colors, those are very important to learn. If you are carried away with the tools and then try to create some beautiful effects, shadow effects, and all these things, it may not be,
And
successful long run.
hey, Papu, also I wanted to add to this, like I do sometimes find that the basic visual communication fundamentals, like, and typographic fundamentals, for example, justification, where to use rags, how are you checking for rivers, orphan widows, where to use shadow, where to use italics. I think sometimes I see like some of the not design educated guys also get that very naturally, but
Correct.
it's good to have that fundamentals covered. I see a lot of those breaking here right up front. So yeah, absolutely. Like
So similar to that, I mean, what Bapu said and Shaik mentioned. I mean, we are. I'm also here not judging this. I'm just saying that improvement areas. This portfolio may not have design background, but when you are coming into the design industry, if you are not having the design background or design education, probably you find out the best mentor within the organization who can guide you to go to the right direction, because I could see a lot of effort being put in here, but the effort it was not in the right direction, then it will be like a misuse of the effort. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a
Great. So
great point.
that's some great advice for Tejasvi. So let's move on to the next portfolio, which is by Ravi Kiran. Uh, and this is the first project I picked from his Behance page. And it says it's Medifix, it's a user interface design, and it's a medical app only for iOS. That's what I understand from the first screen. So let me go down. You have about connect specialized doctors through video consultation, objectives, doctor, book an appointment for your specialized doctor, and you have challenges. Then you jump into visual identity. So, what do you guys think of this concept? Shayak, I'll let you go first because I know you have some experience with this industry, if I'm not wrong.
I mean, you mean to ask about the logo that yeah, I mean
Uh,
as far as
yes,
the
it's
logo is
medical app. So,
concerned,
what do you think of this first?
See, I mean, again, like a fairly okay, I mean, like a decent stab at it. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's extremely, outstanding, but I think it's a good execution as far as this is concerned. I think the only problem challenge, if you look at it, if you go on the bottom part and where the app icon is placed, you can see that the red and blue contrast, and hence that kind of doesn't work out. And are we looking at all of those scenarios or not? And red and blue, it would be very important to see that how you are using it, because these colors, when come together in a very dark background, they actually look very sinister. So are we using, but on a gray or a lighter background, they can look pretty brilliant. So I'm not going into the entire logo formation part, because that's okay. But see, like the primary, how they use the primary color and the red logo is going to be the most important piece. Yeah.
Correct. So you have all blues as your primary, and then you have multiple colors as your secondary. And then you move on to your typeface. It says Poppins, sans serif. Okay. So I think this is going into a design system kind of a thing where you define multiple headings, then you have a couple of icons, then you have UI component. So this person has said that it is a user interface project, right? So what do you guys think of it so far, be it the UI components or the icons? I'm not sure if this is something he
Yeah.
designed on his own.
Yeah. If you come down, I'm just curious about the part that buttons. Why in the same UI component you have three different kind of buttons, and especially because all of this, as you keep changing the corner radius, you get different moods altogether. I would be
Correct.
quite surprised that I can still expect two of them to exist, but having a zero corner radius and also having a corner radius with 4 pixel or 2 pixel corner radius, I feel they are conflicting in nature by the very mood of what the UI is expected to be. So this is I would say I would be very surprised by this. And if I were to get a chance, I would have definitely asked the question, why would you need these three kind of things, and what is that?
So there's a fourth one also which is just a text button.
Which
So I
is
think there
fair,
are
because
four here.
that's something you typically have. You always have a button, then you have a naked button, then you have ghost buttons, you have 100 different kind of buttons.
Correct.
But changing the curve radius is a complete different UI, from, because I'm coming from Vedantu. So if you are designing for kids, you will have probably 8 radius curve, and if I'm designing for healthcare, I will have 2. Okay, if I'm doing a premium design, something for, I will have probably 0, because if I'm designing for Louis Vuitton or Zara, I will have 0 corner. So they belong to different family and mood of things, and unless and until I know that how he plans to execute it, this looks very odd to me.
Okay. So you have your text fields moving on to the next part, and you have a couple of states. So what do you look for in a UI designer's portfolio, basically? Do you look at their understanding of the implementation, or do you look at their understanding of what? I mean, I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
I mean, if you ask me,
yeah.
Anybody else wants to go, please.
No, actually, before maybe you can answer that question. I just go up a bit. The fields he was trying to show. He was trying to show the background as a blue. Does it mean that all their screens are in blue color, so that you actually see? Is he testing this field how they are going to look like on a blue background? So here, is he presenting it for the purpose of presentation? He's creating that. So these things are very important, because if these fields are being appeared on blue screen, and then what kind of buttons you're actually keeping, the red buttons are going to come again on the blue, right? Blue background. So the Shaq's point, the contrast definitely, it's too high, and it's not pleasing to the eye. Yeah, go ahead, Shaq. I think you were talking about what do you see when you are actually looking at UI portfolio.
Yeah. Again, in terms of UI, see, I mean, come to just hold on to that screen. Go up.
Yeah.
So right here, somehow I feel the scale is lost here. Okay, because
Correct.
none of I don't know what screen size you're talking about, but typically the font, the logo, and this. So while when I was looking at the initial UI exploration, I could see that some of the shadows, typography, they are fine. They are actually on there. But I was just wondering that what scale this guy is going to use it on, because I don't have a understanding
Right.
of that what type font size he's using, right? But as soon as I come to this, I feel that that is mismatch. And if you go down, go to the onboarding screen. Uh, yeah, so you just look at the button, right? It's off scale. I mean, you don't have such a small button on a UI. So so the dots,
Correct.
the button, and the text and everything is right now off scale. Even the ratio of the mobile is slightly off. So not very sure about, does he understand how to place it on a particular screen. Maybe he does. So he's very new,
Correct.
and he's probably designing it for the first time. Gets a lot of things right, but you know.
Is
This is
very
a
on
challenge of
point
scale.
here.
So I would just add up to this. I would say that there should be some consistency. It is a basic, very basic fundamental. You have to have the consistency across, whether you are taking this portfolio as your small project, how you're presenting to the audience, your customer, because you need to think that who is the audience of this portfolio, the recruiters, right? They should understand the basic things, the consistency, which is missing here. I definitely add another point, which is that honesty. I could see that any designer or senior people who is in this industry, they can find out this kind of gaps immediately. It won't take much time, and they will ask question left and right, and then you will just get into the position where you would never would like to be, right? So that's why honesty is very important, and honesty would be visible on your work. I feel that is missing. Yeah.
I mean, my worry would be
That's
that
very interesting point.
as soon as I reach the onboarding screen, I would have left this portfolio because I would not have proceeded beyond that. Once I
Absolutely.
have realized that this person has, yeah. So yeah,
So I think we've been discussing two things here. One is the portfolio itself, and then the project. So it looks like this person actually succeeded in setting up this whatever that work. He's in a way that we are able to navigate to the project quickly, so that now the comments, whatever that comments we are giving, is not on that portfolio structure but on the project. That means as a portfolio, it's, I think, is got a decent portfolio. But from the project perspective, I think we are all giving comments. So the second level of that.
but I think Bapu also, like what Sachi said, that probably it's only the first 5 to 10 seconds.
You're right.
But
Yes.
if at least some of the fundamentals have to be covered during that time, so that it goes
Correct.
beyond that.
Correct. Yeah, because there are some questions coming up, like, so how do you see the portfolio? The moment the portfolio
Right.
presentation is not good, and you don't even look into that, right? You don't even spend time into, then you, the first shot itself, oh, this person doesn't have any design skills. But I was talking about, okay, and now you are actually getting into a project. Now you're discussing about project inputs. Yeah.
So a lot of perspectives going in. So let's go to this different style of portfolio. So this person has shared an XD. I'm guessing it's a prototype link, and I've just opened it on my browser. And what do you think about this approach? So you have the scroll is working. There's something in the bottom which is kind of obstructing the white bar. But let me just go ahead and click the first project,
So
and this is what
actually,
it
the
is.
moment somebody has a working website, even if it comes with a little bit of branding, but even like an XD prototype link, this kind of thing immediately sort of gets you a little
Scores
more
high.
intrigued.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now you feel okay, this person is sort of trying to present themselves professionally or is sort of familiar with the tools, and it in itself becomes a UX exercise than, like, a floating PDF. So you get a better insight into how a person sort of would approach a screen.
And if I were to add to that, Robert, I mean, see, sometimes when there is already a group of designers in an organization, when you're bringing a new guy, you are trying to raise the bar, okay? Because you have so many people coming in and applying to that. You want to hire somebody who is not only covered in the basics, but also is going to raise the bar. So I remember one guy actually had a YouTube video where he, is presenting, or right up front in the home screen, the top level, there was a YouTube video where he talks about himself also. And they are pushing it, right? Because they are trying to bring in newer mediums, newer so we do look for that also, right? Yeah. So yeah.
That's great. So I think in our last session also this point came up where if I should build a website or do a Behance or a Dribble portfolio link, I think the preference is with website. And I think even in the last meeting we did kind of establish the same thing. So that's great to hear. So we come
So
to this stage. What do you guys think about? Yeah, Babu, you're saying something.
yeah, I think we have actual questions are there. Maybe yeah, we should actually get
Should we
into.
switch to that? All right,
Yeah.
sounds good.
So that's a one good question coming from, I think, Ramsha. She's, I think, looks like she's coming from asking from Pakistan. Yeah. I have a question as I'm a fresher in UX UI field. So how can I start building UX portfolio? How I should decide what would be my case study or a problem statement, and how I can start from scratch. Anybody wants to take that question? She's a fresher,
Yeah.
and how can she build a portfolio from scratch?
See, I think in the beginning of the discussion we talked about that it is not a matter of it's one project or no project, because every individual starts from no experience, right? We get into the industry with the no experience, and we start getting that experience as we work towards that. But if I have something, even my personal front, some of the social thing that I contributed towards, right, solving a problem, I can start with that. That doesn't mean that it would be wrong. You can start with whatever you have, and then keep getting that feedback from different individuals, and keep working on towards that, because a portfolio is not something that you have done once and it is done. It is a live document or live project. Every time you are improving, right? So anything that you have in your bucket, you start with that and get that feedback towards it, instead of waiting for that when I have a project I will start it.
Yeah. And
That's my opinion.
if I can add to that, so Sachi, please go ahead.
No, no, please go ahead, sir.
Then okay. So I was saying that three things. Okay, I'm assuming that like since you're starting and you've not worked with any place, so hence the question. So first of all, uh, uh, you know, you can, like Lowell said, you can pick up anything. Like I typically say, you can pick up projects like IRCTC, or any NGO, or any kind of project that you want to. You look around yourself and you will see enough bad design, and you pick it up and start solving for it. That is the first. Second is something that you feel really passionate about. That can also be the case because you want to solve that problem. You think that is relevant, but do make sure that you don't fit design to solve that, if only if design is required to solve that, because sometimes it also happens that somebody picks up a problem and then that requires a different kind of solution, and you are trying to force fit the design. And the third is even small things. I remember one guy once having a small project which talks about that I have so many tabs open in my Chrome and I don't know which tab is what. So unless and until I click on that tab, and he suggested that when you hover on the tab, and this is way back before this solution was already done by somebody, some plugin, or I think Google also does that, that you hover on the tab and it gives you a status of this, so that you don't have to click on it. Now this is something that that person has really felt, and I think the whole objective of studying design is to start looking at things in those lenses. And And if you can present that, and if you can solve some of those problems, it will be great. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and also I know solving an urgent problem or real world problem. I think last year we did conduct this Design Social Challenge. So we had wonderful ideation actually. Like we had mentors actually help them to drive from identifying the problem to solving it. So one way of to get build your portfolio is to be part of this contest and then create your project and submit them. You don't have to worry about winning. That's one way to do it. Second is volunteer to do, as Shaq was also mentioning, that you can actually volunteer to redesign applications, and you can always, of course, don't force that you want to create something and identify the problem. For example, your face, as a wonderful example, you're talking about the tabs things, right? So in your day-to-day interactions, you see a lot of problems, identify the problem and try to solve it. And I also see that it doesn't have to be always digital, but you can always, because your design aptitude is most important than showing an app or a web page visually pleasing. So how are you understanding the problem and how are you solving it, and how is it, what kind of impact it's creating? That itself actually understand tells you that how design sense to you are. Okay. Anybody else wants to add it? Otherwise, we can go to another
So,
question. Go ahead.
just like one bit, I think, although, like Shayak said, the problems are all around us. Like you can look at any direction and you'll find something, that you could design for or solve for. But while picking up a project, I think it's important to understand how to sort of frame a problem statement, because that sort of decides the course of how it's going to be, how you would approach it. So sometimes, if the problem statement that you pick is too narrow, then there's like sort of no design scope to explore and deep dive into it. And sometimes if it's too wide, then you sort of get lost in the process. So I think it's ideal to find sort of a problem statement which gives you enough scope to wander and ideate on, but it should not sort of leave you out in the open. You can't like take a big thing and just try solving that systemic level problem on day one. So I think that is also important. What kind of problem you take up should be solvable by you in that time period.
Sure. Yeah. So, Shana Goodman, she's asking a question. When people are hiring UI designers, are they looking for people who can design original icons from scratch, or people who can take preset icons and later and alter them? The question is, shall we have to create our own icons or take the existing icons and alter? Can we do that?
If I were to answer this, if Shana is asking for UI designers, of course somebody has a, like in the portfolio, doesn't matter that what if they have used something or not, but the expectation is that they should be able to create or craft icons from grounds up with some basic principles, that what stroke width you are going to use, what kind of curves you are going to use, and everything. So that is extremely important. Not necessarily that has to be done for the portfolio. I don't know if somebody wants to establish that they can do that, it's good. For a UI designer, 100%. UX, not always.
So you're saying
And
we need to have original icons, right? That's what you're saying for a.
see, the idea is that for UI designer, the idea is simply that that person should be able to craft illustrations, icons, color, and everything grounds up, right? I don't mind that if he actually ends up in day-to-day work, probably that person is going to use something already, but that person should have the capability of doing that. And if that is demonstrated by either the icons or by some illustrations or by some other execution, I would be okay with it. But to be able to work with vectors is very important. I mean, at least the basics of the vectors, right? Because we are probably not, because we are talking about UI, right? So I expect that person to also fill in the shoe of illustrator if required. I probably might hire a separate illustration person But if required, that person should have the potential to do that, which means that that person knows the fundamentals of Bezier tool, and which is what I think I will try to understand from the UI, any illustration or icon execution. Yeah.
Actually, she's adding to the same question. I should say I have deep illustration skills, but I am wondering whether I should focus more on editing or creating.
So I think, for me, I mean, which context you are in, which organization you are in. So any organization may have a icon library, right? They have a standard already defined. So you are just contributing to that library, creating something. That means you are actually pick up something and editing and contributing. If there is nothing that they are expecting you to do that, since you know the illustration, you can always do that. Go ahead and do that, right? For the first time, it is based on the context that you are in. But
Yeah.
as a UI designer, you should have that capability to do.
For Chana, I will say that if she is good in illustration, then she should create. Okay, because that opens up a really nice conversation. That why did you think? See, it's not about that. Can you create the same illustration which somebody has done before? Okay, and that's what also editing can lead to. When I talk about illustration, then I'm saying that, like, what is the inspiration behind the illustration? Why this illustration and why this style is relevant to the user? Okay, because everything stems from a design principle. Okay, and for example, in Practo, we had Tim Lahan. We were inspired by Tim Lahan's work because it was wavy and casual. Tim Lahan is a New Yorker artist, so why did you take that inspiration from there? And it was not done by the internal team; it was given by CGH from New York. But this understanding that why are we doing this illustration and how does it stand out? Because today also you can go to StoryPick, you go to you can use Pablo Stanley's illustration, and you can have 100 stock illustration available. So how your illustration stands out for your industry first, and second is the kind of user you are dealing with. And so that would definitely be a interesting conversation to have.
So, but
But
I think
if she feels like she has good illustration skills, I think that is something that she should really highlight, because
Yeah.
we find very few, like there are a lot of UI designers who can work with libraries and edit it. But sometimes, while we were working on specific edtech projects, we were looking at somebody who had that skill, who could generate illustrations ground up, and it was something which was hard to find. Like, so that could be like a nice little niche factor that how she could stand out amongst like a pool of UI designers.
yeah, so
so. Bapu, before I let you add to that, I think we need to steer the discussion away from this a little bit, because
yeah,
we promised that we are going to talk a little bit about building a design resume. Somebody pointed out. Yeah. Okay, great. So somebody pointed out in our last, session that we should also talk a little bit about building a design resume. So maybe you can give a very quick answer. I mean, we're running out of time, so maybe a quick advice on how to go about building a design resume if you're starting out as a fresh designer, or if you're switching from a different career to a design career.
So one thing that I would like to just point blank say, that a standalone resume makes no sense, specifically for design jobs. So if you are sort of just sending one resume expecting somebody to come back and ask you for your portfolio, I think most people would not get back to you. So I think the most essential thing is to have your like portfolio link or whatever a part of your resume, and that is like something which can actually not having it can make you somebody completely overlook the whole profile itself.
yeah.
So that is, I think, the biggest thing for me.
And
I think it's quite annoying as well when you don't send across your portfolio link when you're a designer, right? And you have to ask them again to specifically send it across.
I think
In
there is a
most
thumb
cases,
rule.
nobody's going to come back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and also treat your resume as again a design problem. So, and as we've seen some of those works like documentation, don't do that. So how much you have to keep it so crisp, and anything you're adding there, that should actually have value. Don't write your stories there. So we take it as a challenge. If you can
Yeah.
fit the whole thing in a page, or the maximum 2 pages. And also it actually passes through different kinds of people. I think Sanchi was actually talking about visual hierarchy and all, because recruiters and nowadays, what is it,
Headhunters.
headhunters actually. So they don't even have a clarity on what you are actually. They only look for those keywords. And nowadays people are also using robots to select your
That's true.
resumes, and then it actually passes through your peers. They're going to be like designers, co-designers. They go through it, and then it goes to the head. And so when you are keeping your designing your resume itself, you should have a clear understanding what you want to do and what job you are applying for. And also when you are talking about your experience, the companies actually, because so many companies, if it is Google, Microsoft, people understand. Otherwise, a lot of startups, you have to one liner what does that actually do, what is that company you have done or worked for. And if you're a fresher, I think focus more on education, and then you talk about your internships and all those. And also make sure that, I think, as Sanchi was pointing out, keep a link to your portfolio so that it actually takes you to the next level to see what the work you have done. And most importantly, proofread it. Don't keep any spell mistakes, and don't copy from somebody's resume. And because that's what we were discussing. If people are coming from same school, they'll give you a template, and we just have to change your names. If you do that, you're out. People are very smart, and they'll immediately understand that what you are. You'll take this as your own project. Show your personality in the resume. Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Yes.
for the rest of you who've not answered that, let me be a little bit more specific with the question. So, as somebody who's looking to switch to a design career and who's had a bit of experience in, let's say, engineering of some field, how do you even evaluate whether this person as a designer might be a good fit by looking at the resume?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
actually that depends. If it's if you're looking for a very specific UI sort of role, then it will be very hard to evaluate this, just like if this person is fit for the job just by the resume, then you would have to go to the portfolio. But if it's like, maybe if I'm looking for a UX researcher or a UX designer, then there are people who worked in, even if you've done engineering, you've done some kind of problem solving, just that the output of it is not design oriented. So you can actually, like that one liner description or a couple of lines that you write, you can talk about things that you have undertaken which had that essence of problem solving and what you did for it, even if the outcome was engineering driven. So that could help me understand, okay, maybe this person can be evaluated further.
Yeah. I mean, I can just talk about how I approach resume, because it's a tricky piece. The reason being, sometimes people have to make resume to fit into the headhunters, because headhunter has a different, he is looking for the stats and data, right? And the designer is looking for something else. Now, if the same resume has to pass through both these people, like if you make it too abstract, the headhunter might miss some point and probably might not pass on the resume upstream. So while the basic stats has to be there, you have to kind of solve for both the users, which is me and also the headhunter who is looking at it. And probably the headhunter is not good at understanding design, right? So I think the basic stats has to be covered, so that that person can at least move it upstream. And when it comes to me, typically I look at that at least the basic hygiene, typography, and typo errors, these are not there. Okay. And like you guys mentioned, that I also seen that people have put their portfolio link, but that is not clickable. Try to make it clickable right up front from there. And so these are the few things I try not to judge too much from there, because you're talking about a fresher, and like it, the stats doesn't give me enough idea about what does this key jobs are, right? So I will definitely go into the, but it's just only for the data. And to, there are people I have probably rejected based on just looking at the resume that, okay, like probably the basic hygiene is not there, so just we drop it out. So yeah, so
Yeah, I think there was a.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
No, I said, I mean, you most of the things been covered. I would just add few of them. Like, some of the time we see that the profile or portfolio that comes, which doesn't, match with the context of the ask, right? The requirement. So people have the tendency that I have designed my profile and portfolio and keep on sending to every requirement that coming into my way, right? So you have to go through the requirement very carefully, and you have to spend some time on your profile to make that profile sounds for that requirement, right? And that is also being very honest towards that. You cannot just make story out of it. So there should be a facts to support that. And when you have to put on that, this is the capability that you have, primary, secondary, or tertiary, and what are the things you can bring onto the table of the recruiter, right? This is the value addition that you can add there, what the recruiters are looking for.
Yeah.
So that element should be there in your profile.
Yeah. Tejashvi Shiv and Rashmi Ranjan actually are asking very similar question that I'm a student and from a different field, I'm transitioning to UX design, and what kind of projects I should keep it. Shall I keep my engineering projects? Similarly, Rashmi Ranjan said she had 20 years of interior design experience when I'm transitioning to IT. So what is the kind of work and I have to showcase in my portfolio, or maybe I think in a resume? Yeah.
I mean, Bapu, I was reading this question and I was pretty interesting. So, for example, somebody with 20 years of experience, I don't think any designer is going to look at them at an IC role or a fresher. There's no way to kind of relate that to a fresher role, right? Even if that person is moving into this, so they have to bring other chops there, because first of all, I don't know, maybe if the skills are absolutely outstanding, it will be definitely considered for an IC or a kind of a craft-based role. But I would, if that's not the case, then somebody's ability to break down the problem, manage, and I would be looking at very different things on the portfolio, not the UI per se purely, okay, but deeper understanding of the design fundamentals. And if that person can break down the problem, get it done by other people, some of those areas have to be in perspective, because that number of years of experience, it's not that we can just ignore that fact, and that should carry forward, right? That how you have handled big projects, because interior design, right? So yeah, so ability to manage large projects, break down the because breaking down a visual design or design system making process is a very tough thing. If somebody can demonstrate that, I would say that will that combination is something that I will look for probably.
Yeah. Tejal Shah is asking how many case studies should be there in portfolio. Any number? I would actually say at least 3. And and the most recent, and also you feel that they are really good. You felt that, yes, and this is what I wanted to talk about. Don't go by number. That's what I would say. Any comments on that?
I also say that don't go by the number. It is by the quality is the important thing, and how that solves the business problem or social problem. That is what important is for me.
Okay. Sanchi, you have something to say?
So I was saying that there is no minimum number for me. It could just be one also, a nicely, deep dive problem. But there is like an upper limit. I think about 5 is good. That's like beyond that. I think portfolio should also be sort of the best and most relevant work. You don't if you've been doing this for last 7 years, you should not have your 7-year-old work also part of your portfolio just because to have that volume. I think you should just pick the 3 to 5 best case studies which are most relevant to what you are either applying for, or what is the current what does the current market and user look like. I think that is what should be focused on. The quantity will never, it can always, the quantity just overwhelms me. And if there is like this whole discrepancy, then I'm confused. Which is the skill? Like, is this old project is the real skill, or I don't know which is the old project, which is the new. So, just the best work should be featured, I think.
Okay, great. So, Inika, this is an interesting question. I'm transitioning towards a BA role alongside a UX role. How impactful would this skill be in my UX portfolio or resume? So, from my side, I would answer this way. You're already a BA, actually. If you are a UX person, that means you actually understand the problem and what you are solving and the domain. Without having clarity on it, you should not solve. I would do that. Actually, I don't even attempt to design. So you already have that quality. But if you are playing as a separate role, that's a, BA as a separate role is an added advantage for you. But from UX portfolio or resume point of view, it is being expected. You guys can answer that.
Yeah. So one more thing, I mean, a little confusing probably here. If I'm transitioning from UX to BA role, I need to define myself first. What would be my primary, and my portfolio should carry the primary thing first, right? That's my way of thinking. Definitely, once I keep on practicing BA, and after some time, I would feel more confident on BA. Then my portfolio should sound as a BA portfolio.
Yeah, I will just add to this because somebody's coming and saying BA. Probably, I'm assuming that you are in services business, because if you relate back to or maybe larger MNCs, but if you go to a pure tech product company, that role fundamentally is saying that you are also looking at PM. Partly that role or an analyst part, right? Now, that's a very strong addition to somebody who is doing UX. I think. I mean, we keep telling our UX folks that you start looking at analytics by yourself. And if your PM or your analyst guy is not available, we should be able to pull things out from either Python or Tableau or somewhere. And I think if somebody can do that and make sense of that data, it's a great skill. It's absolutely brilliant.
Okay. Rashmi is asking, I think she was asking about that interior design and IT systems experience. She added, how much of UX tools expertise is expected? I think we discussed, right? She had good experience in interior design, IT systems. So she's asking this question here.
I think it's important. Okay, it's very important, and also specifically see. And again, there's a distinction between, let's say, there is a senior guy who is a lead or a manager versus, let's say, a fresh guy. So if I'm looking at a fresh person, of course, like fresher, I would expect him to know many skills, like should be able to quickly hack around and do a 3D on Blender, or probably be able to a little bit work on Figma, of course, and other tools as well. And the more the tools, the merrier, right? Because that person is bringing in much more vibrancy to his work. But as you go senior, there's probably you are doing too many other works to spend that much amount of time there. But I think what is more critical for a senior role is that you understand the basics of this. For example, even to a level of saying that, do you understand the basics of JavaScript and HTML? Now, you don't have to be hands-on coding into that, and you don't probably have to be a coder yourself. But how much do you understand the basics? Because if I were to give this instruction to a designer that please make it, and I remember this used to happen in Practo again, because this entire illustration that we took inspiration from, you could not create it on Illustrator, because Illustrator Bezier tool will always give you sharp lines. Okay, and this used to have a curve, so you need either a vacuum tab for that. So pen versus pencil tool, your tooling changes, and if you don't have that understanding of what is the right tool to make the right thing, it will become a challenge in deciding and moving forward, and you will be restricted by that. So that understanding is absolutely important for senior people, that what are the ground rules of some tools and how do they work.
Okay. So Shana Goodman is asking, I have worked as a UX UI. I always get annoyed when somebody says UX UI designer. You have to be UX designer or UI designer or visual designer. But fine. Okay. I worked as a designer for a site, but the developer dropped out and the site was not finished well. So visually, I'm not happy with the outcome. How can I show this in a portfolio? Anybody answer it?
There is always like even when it is well designed, there could always be things, you know, that are different from the intended design. It could be just some animation, you know, that doesn't function that well across all screen sizes, or it could be like that pixel perfection is not reached. But I think if a product that somebody designed is live, you should show the designs that you had actually proposed. And even having this sort of not matched developed websites, you should still, I think, include the link for it and let people experience it. And you can always tell them that, okay, this was the intended design, but this is how, you know, through the engineering it was developed. Because somewhere, the moment somebody sees a live project, I think they are able to understand how, you know, sort of your design translated into something. So there could always be that mismatch, but I think the only way to demonstrate that is like to have both the things out there.
Yeah. If I were to add to this, like if somebody has worked in an organization like, let's say, Salesforce, or a larger organization where there is a very huge process. So again, I will evaluate it based on the person, the place the person has worked in. And I know in the startup ecosystem, if somebody has worked in startup, probably the execution is going to be 20 to 30% of the whatever you have designed. So and that's the reason we have the portfolio, because that's where we see the person's skill. And then even if the execution is bad, that probably, and typically we kind of drill down into that, is that probably because of the setup, how it was, and how the execution rigor was on the tech side, right? So a right manager would kind of look into the context. But if you are coming from, let's say, Google, and then and there was a particular execution which was bad, which would not happen actually, and then you can very well judge that, okay, fine, this was probably the design that has gone out, and I would are on the side of trusting the tech info on that, right? So yeah.
Okay, good. Rohan, let's take the last question. Enika is asking, a lot of online master courses for experience design are called human-computer interaction. What is the broad difference here?
Papu, you are best to answer this, right?
I want to leave it to you guys.
You are from the era of SCI, right? I mean, like.
No, I'll jump in. I want to understand your views.
I remember that. Like, I typically break down the entire UX industry into two phases. One is post iPhone and pre iPhone. And before iPhone came, design wasn't that glamorous, and there used to be SCI, okay, human computer interaction, which was what was also user experience, or not user experience actually. It's basically human computer interaction. And after iPhone came in, and like when UX, UI, and this become mainstream. But yeah, I think the difference is, I can just give one anecdotal experience from my life to give you one good understanding about that. HP used to hire SCI, HP Labs used to hire SCI folks, and these SCI folks in India was a different case altogether. When they used to hire abroad, these people were undergraduate in tech, okay, computer science, postgraduate in design, and double masters in psychology, okay. And you can from this understand that it is probably a mix of understanding, to be able to even code and create those interfaces, also understand the psychology in which you have to create the visual ergonomics, and even, and also the part which is the design of it, right? By the way, the interesting fact, in India, they would hire 3 different people to solve for the same problem, which is one computer science grad, one designer, and one psychology major, and they will put them together. And I think still the solution would not be that great because there's always some miscommunication between different people.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah. Go ahead.
Uh,
Yeah.
Bapu, correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes, a lot of times, these could just be the names because one academy or institute is trying to churn out a lot of different courses. So I think the idea here is to just go into the description and understand, like, what is the context and what is actually happening in a UX course versus HCI course, because in today's time a lot of terms and jargons are used interchangeably. So it could very well be almost the same thing but a little bit of psychology or very little bit of tech along with a
Actually,
basic UX course.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think SCI is a primarily tech domain, okay, because it evolved from the IT or the tech people would basically start doing SCI. That how and then that's where the GUI and how everything, for example, brain computer interface, right? It's purely to start with tech. UX is more about when it comes to the final B2C and the marketing and all of that. So it was SCI is more of a purely a science, a stream of computer science. I would see it that way. I don't know if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, like HCI, when the interface was actually the very initial stages, so people actually done a lot of research. At HCI, you see a lot of papers actually published. For example, how you're interacting with systems, computers, and screens, and also like cognitive psychology and visual ergonomics. All of them being discussed, and then finally they arrived some principles to use it. Now we are actually using those principles and then building that UX and all. But Sanchi, to your point, actually UX was had different names, but actually HCA is actually a starting point. Actually, how humans are interacting with the computers, because initially computers are mainly for the scientists and tech people, and now as Shaq was talking about it, now it's for anybody, even a carpenter actually uses. Everybody is carrying a computer right now. The phone is a computer now. So how those interactions have been defined? We are actually using the gist of it. Actually, the research has been done, and it has been given us, in a simple manner to consume that actually the research. So as Shayak was mentioning that, we had transition from, yeah, go ahead.
Even before this, basically, it was human machine interaction. I mean, even before computers came in, and
Yes.
it was a stream of engineering that way. Like I remember that in the design thinking, we talk about Alfonso Chapanic, who probably designed the first aircraft interface, and so yeah. I mean, it kind of dates back pretty old in the sense, and
Right.
it was primarily a stream of engineering to start with. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that Carnegie Mellon had this HCA course,
Carnegie,
mainly.
yeah.
Yeah, the focus was like, to get into that you should have a computer science degree to get into it. Yeah, not from a
To
design
some
background.
extent, even
Yeah.
MIT also has this, right? Because MIT Media Lab, you still need to have a computer science background to start off, right? Kick off there.
Correct. Yeah. So, but other points you're talking about, like UX has been called as information architecture. Now we are calling interaction design, and we have several names to do it. And we used to call it usability engineering, and now UX UI. I don't know why this has been coined these days. Whenever that name, that word UX UI, somebody says, I get, oh my God, so this person doesn't have clarity on what he's doing. And visual design, and people are getting confused with so many words. And of course, actually, like finally, when you say UX, it actually encompasses all of them together. Yes, that human-centered design is another one word used. But human-computer interaction, HCA, is a little different than what we are all doing now. Yeah, that is a bit more research, and then towards computer science and cognitive psychology, visual ergonomics, all those things involved in that. Yeah.
Yeah, Babu, so I have to kind of say this, that we are offering courses at Yomo Design School, and if you are willing to learn something about design, go check it out and probably you'll get some more clarity. That's all I can say. And I think we're already about half an hour above our scheduled time. That's great. We had a great discussion, but before we wrap up and before we close this call, I should also talk a little bit about the job portal we have at Yomo, because a lot of folks are interested. Of course, I mean, who wouldn't want a job, right, when you're offering one? And we want to kind of share it with all our participants. So let me quickly share my screen so that we want to continue this as a practice every session, where we kind of pick a couple of jobs and show it to all you folks. And so yeah, so here it is, the first job. This is actually a company where I work and we are currently hiring. So if you are, if you think you have a great portfolio and any sort of experience level, do reach out to me. And yeah, that's basically, I don't want to talk too much about my company's job here, but here, let's go to the next one. We have a job listing from User Zoom from UK. So anybody watching from the UK, you can check out User Zoom. We have a graphic design studio from Mumbai, 1702 Digital. Then we have a McKinsey and Company. And we have so many of these job listings which keep coming to us, and which we voluntarily are going and picking out to kind of curate and show it to you guys. For those of you who are hiring and those of you who are looking to get a job, I'm sure this is going to help you. I won't go into showing you all the jobs, because we have a website. It's yomo.design/jobs, and you can filter out and do whatever you want with all these listings over here. And if you are a recruiter, you can also post a job completely free of cost. We just want to kind of help our community in showing them the best jobs out there. And for people who are hiring, for people who are getting looking for a job, you can find a job of your choice from these listings. So that's all I have to say today, and I think it's been a great session overall. Thank you so much for joining us. This talk is brought to you by Umo Design School. So thank you, folks, for contributing to all these questions coming in from a lot of these people. We are going to keep doing these sessions. So hopefully we'll keep inviting you every other couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll see you soon again here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.